I want to talk today about progressive web apps, and I know this is a bit of a weird thing at this conference because everything else is about like architecture and like, oh, cool Java stuff and things. And now they get this web freak coming in here and talk about that stuff for you. And I am actually, I love the internet to bits, and it's mainly my career. I used to be a radio journalist, and then in my free time, I wrote games on Commodore 64 and these kind of things. And then I realized I have to find a career that is above the age of 30, which radio isn't. And then I realized the internet came around and I started using it very early on. And my whole career was doing things on the internet, for the internet and with the internet. And that's why I'm getting kind of frustrated how the internet is not the cool thing any longer. And it's kind of like, it's like water, you know, like we go to the bathroom and we open the tap and water comes out and we enjoy it, but we don't question the plumbing any longer. We don't know where the water came from. We don't care. And it's kind of the same with the internet. And that's why there's problems with the internet. I just was at the internet days in Sweden, and there I pretended to be people who are late have to sing a song? Okay, then sit down, but quickly, okay? Anyways, I was at the internet days, and there I pretended to be a psychologist that interviewed a depressed internet that is in his midlife crisis. Don't know what drugs I was on when I came up with that talk, but people liked it a lot. And I looked at the problems that the internet has these days, and most of them are not technical, but more like problems with people. So there's censorship, like governments love to censor the internet. I live in England for now, but I use a VPN and I love to encrypt my stuff. But they love to take things off the internet right now because it's still like, oh my God, citizens and real data, we can't give them that. There's bullying, there's lots of people going online just to be horrible to other people. There's trolling, people trying to be funny and be horrible to people that way. There's malware, people who are writing things to be horrible to people. And then there's surveillance with horrible people looking at you, what you're doing online to look at horrible things, which is not fun either. And there's security issues, of course, because people love to use passwords called password 123, or if they're clever, 456, because nobody comes up with that one. And there's obesity, and that is what I want to talk about today the most. When you say that the products that we do are a bit like us, then we made the internet what we have become, lazy and fat. Because if you look at the average website, this is a website, this is a web page. This is not a website. This is the first load web page, from HTTP archive, which is like millions of websites, and it is like 2.4 megabyte for a website, for a web page. If I'm on my mobile phone and for example, I was in Albania, and with my English mobile phone, I pay £12 per megabyte. So going to the average website would cost me the same as a cinema ticket. So it'd probably be better than Iron Man or something like that, because otherwise I'd be really angry that I paid like £19 for your website. And when you look at it, it's the HTML, like the content, is like only 53K. The rest is like images because we love Retina displays, and scripts because we love to copy and paste from Stack Overflow without knowing what we're doing, and implementing 15 different libraries to make a rollover effect or something like that. And if we're considering our users, then this is really worrying, because our users went away from desktops to laptops to mobile phones a long time ago. Right now, every new user that goes on the internet is 99% mobile. The other day, somebody ran into the box at every end of my road where the internet is coming from, you know, the plumbing thing. And for a whole week, my street didn't have any internet. Nobody cared but me, because everybody else is just using their mobile phones and their iPads to go online anyways. They don't use the landline any longer. I was really depressed by that. So the web, on our standards that we have, the HTML standards, the stuff that I worked on, wasn't ready for the mobile form factor. We still were thinking about large documents that link to each other and reload every single time when you click on something, and that on a mobile device, and mobile connectivity is horrible, because mobile connectivities go up and down the way they want to. They tell you, oh, we're like Edge, or we're like a 3 connection, but they are slower and faster every few seconds. And that's why the mobile factor was an issue for us. Mobile was a throwback to the web of old. The web, when it was still like connecting to the web, was like these kind of things. This is what mobile feels like right now still. And it's small screens, bad connectivity, unreliable browser support, and constantly changing conditions, and hardwired browser and hardware with unpredictable upgrades. That was the biggest issue. When lots and lots of cheap Android devices came on the web, and every Android provider thought like, hey, I can make my own browser by forking WebKit 7 years ago and not caring about it in between any longer, we had lots of problems that the browsers never got upgraded. And that's a security issue, that's a problem. When I started at Microsoft, in my job interview, the question was, what do you want to do here? And I said, kill Internet Explorer. And they hired me, and they said, like, thank you, we want you for that. And I'm like, great, let's start today or yesterday. This is great. And it started really well, if you remember. When the first iPhone came out, Steve Jobs said that you got everything you need and you know how to write apps on the iPhone. It's modern web standards, it's HTML5, Flash is evil, HTML standards is all good. That's what Steve Jobs said. Sadly enough, he died, and people who wanted to make money with Apple stuff realized that with open standards and allowing anybody to publish wherever they want, it's not easy as a company to make money with that. That's why they started realizing that native application is probably a better idea. Steve Jobs, from the very beginning, was against native applications. He said, there's no point to these when the browser is good enough. And I loved him for it. I called him up and said, hi, Steve, thank you, and things. But then he got away, and people like, well, let's forget about that one for a change. Because if you now go to the website, the new stuff that comes out, you download 2.4 meg, and then it tells you, oh, by the way, download from the App Store if you want the real functionality. I always love this, when you have a website that loads and loads and loads and loads, and then like, by the way, we also have an app. You just waited for 2 megabyte. You can also wait for 50 megabyte if you want to, for the same functionality that you came from. And it was in Forbes, 2014 was a great article where it said that Steve Jobs was the biggest blunder that he tried to bet on the web because the web is rubbish, and App Store is the big success, the massive success for everybody involved. If you're a 14-year-old teenager in the Silicon Valley and you've got a garage and a second-hand computer, you can build an app and be a millionaire tomorrow. And the press loved that kind of story, that Cinderella story of the app millionaire. Now, I looked at this at the Forbes website. It's an article from 2014. I wanted to know what they said about Steve Jobs. And this is what I got. Cyber Monday deals, Cyber Monday laptop sales, and a continue to article button after 10 seconds. Meanwhile, the fan of my computer started going off, and it burned part of my leg and stuff, so that was quite interesting as well. And then I looked at in the developer tools how much the Forbes website is. 902 words article. This is all the content that I came for. This is what I wanted to know. What was the quote, what they said about Steve Jobs? 9.1 megabyte of data, 522 HTTP requests. Remember, every request on mobile is a prisoner and a bad idea to do. 52.48 seconds load time. That's on my 50 megabit connection in England. And below it, it also told me like what morning people in the UK, why they're obsessed with this mattress. Or I could find out what Trump's IQ if I wanted to. Not about what Steve Jobs had to say. Or what I've also found interesting is that there's the most addictive game of the year, followed by the most addictive game of the year. So which one is it now? But that's okay. Meanwhile, somebody random started talking to me, which turns out to be a man from Barclays, which had a video ad that couldn't stop. So I was like, why is my computer talking to me? And it's not Steve Jobs. What's going on here? And when I turned on my paranoid mode and I saw how many trackers and how many ad providers the Forbes website talks to on my behalf that I don't know about, it's 41 of them. So it's no wonder that people like the form factor of a native app more if the web is like this. This is not fun for me. This is fun for the publisher and the ad trackers and the people who want to spy on me and get my browsing data. The problem on the web is that it's a publisher's dilemma. There's a few things going wrong for a publisher there. On the web, users are in control. I can turn an ad blocker on. I can resize the font. I can be really evil and turn off the images or be blind. You know, these kind of horrible things that I could do to this poor publisher. Users are conditioned to not pay for things, but find ways around. We get very excited when people are like, oh, Netflix America has this. Oh, cool, I can use a VPN and watch it. That's illegal, so? You know, we love finding ways around things and getting things for free that we should not get for free. And somehow you have to pay the bills as a publisher. They have to pay their writers. I'm a writer, I know, I should get money for it. Don't think that you can make money with IT books. It doesn't work. But you can do workshops around them, which I don't have time for, and I could have made money with that, but that's a different story. So instead, they turn the users into products to sell to others. That's why we got the 41 trackers and ad providers in there. So every time you go to a website, you get ads shown, you have a random man from Barclays talking to you, and you know what the coolest, most amazing game of the month is, which you didn't come for and you didn't care for, but you get, because they pay them to tell you that. And out of choice or out of necessity, people fight this. There's ad blockers, there's Brave, which is a browser with an ad blocker in it. Or if you're in a country that is just an emerging market, you get Opera Mini or the Puffin browser or the UC browser, which are all browsers that on your behalf take all the crap out of the website and only give you the stuff that you really need. That's the only way how some people can go online, because they pay through the nose for every data byte that goes over the internet. Ad blockers, I've got a bit of a problem with them, because who watches The Watchmen? There's a lot of them that turn out to be like selling their data to the providers they think are good for you, and you don't have any insight in those as well. And it's kind of an endless race. The more ads we block, the more aggressive the other ads become. So we should find a way to pay for stuff online. That would be useful. Now, Wired, a few years ago, also declared proudly that the web is dead, and that applications have won, and apps is how everybody uses things on their iPhone, and obviously everybody lives in the Silicon Valley and has an iPhone to buy every year, and otherwise you're not worthy to be off the internet. So apps are the thing that work much better because the form factor is good and it's a sensible thing to do on a mobile device. And the form factor is, for publishers, apps were the best thing they can have, because it doesn't have the problems of the web. You have control over the look and feel. Most of them don't allow you to resize the font, even if you can't see any longer, like I'm getting old now as well. The revenue resource is there because apps cost money. Websites do not cost money. You cannot say, like, please pay £5 to see this website. Nobody's going to do that. They find a way around it. You have control over the distribution. You remove them from the market if you want to remove them, or only offer in certain regions. If you say, like, okay, this app is only for Germany, they can only be in Germany. And on the web, you can't do this because IP checking which country you're in right now. We know how that goes wrong all the time. And what is more interesting, it has the inbuilt obsolescence. And I gave a TED talk about this 2 years ago, and I'm pretty smug at how it turned out that I was right. That for me, distribution of apps was a step back into the world where things can rust and break and fall apart. Like in the 1920s, people realized you cannot build systems or build products that last, because then you don't sell new ones. Make sure that after a year the thing falls apart so people have to buy a new one. Software, this isn't possible. You cannot make software that becomes worse over time. You can write new software and put it in, but as it is, it's not possible to make a product on the web and say, like, okay, this is outdated now. For the new one, please pay that. But with an app model, you could do that. We made software a perishable product, much like fruit or anything else. And you control the environment. Everybody does iOS first, and then Android maybe. And then when you were lucky, there was a Windows thing. Hi. There was a Windows thing, maybe, but we don't know. And of course, there was the big thing that apps are all money. As soon as you have an app, people will love your product and they will pay the upgrades and they will only buy there, and there's no ad blockers and it's terrible and it's wonderful. In reality check for publishers, though, now that we've been becoming happy about apps for quite some while, is that the pricing is a race to the bottom. Nobody wants to pay things on Android for their apps. 99-cent apps work. $12 apps don't work. When we bought games back on CDs and DVDs and stuff, we were happy to pay $40. Well, not happy, but we saved our money to pay $40 for a game. A $40 in a marketplace on iOS or Android would never be bought. People just are not conditioned that way. It's a lock into the marketplace with its own rules and restrictions. Like when Amnesty International made a game where you simulated by running a sweatshop to show how the working conditions for people in third world countries is, Apple took it off their market. Reasons, I don't know. I could think of it, but it's quite bizarre that these things are taken away. The revenue share with the marketplace and OS provider is another problem. You have to pay money to get listed in these marketplaces, and every money you make with your app has to be shared with the marketplace provider, much like having a shop in a shopping mall means you have to pay for the shop at mall owner. And the updates are hard and may be delayed by the marketplace rules. Doing a quick fix of your application is really, really hard, and sometimes 2-3 days delay until the provider actually does it for you. And it turns out that people don't want to be logged in. Apps are failing left, right, and center, and I'm smug as hell about this, because people don't want to be logged in. People don't want to be told you're in the wrong country to download this app. 94% of the app revenue comes from 1% of the publishers. The whole Cinderella story that everybody can make money with a Flappy Bird tomorrow is bullshit. The most money is made by apps that are by the providers themselves, Google, Facebook. These people make money. Otherwise, good luck selling your app. Good luck getting it listed. Good luck getting it found, because the OS providers also list the ones that they like or they don't like will not show up. 80% of users who download an app fail to become active users. They try it out, they don't understand it, they delete it. They don't even play with it again. They just try it out for the first time. In-app purchases is where the money is at. This is where you actually, as I said, 99 cents is the top you can charge, but then you can charge for upgrades. Make your game horrible until it's too frustrating to play, so people will pay $1 to get some extra money to go to the next level, these kind of things. And these are regulated by the platform or cost a percentage. So they actually, if you want to make money with them, they want some money too. It's kind of fair. 60% of the apps in the Google Play App Store have never been downloaded. That's like going to a rescue shop and see all the puppies there, like, oh, please adopt me. This is unloved code. This is somebody put it there and thought it's going to be a success. They had this, oh, I'm going to be the best app ever, and nobody wants them. 60%. This was in an official video from DoubleClick. It was amazing. The average user downloads less than 3 apps per month. Half of the US smartphone users download 0 apps per month. Why? Because we're super busy on Twitter, on Facebook, on WhatsApp. We already have 24 hours of our day use these things. So we don't actually do something else. We play a game from time to time. We download that once and play it for 15 years or something, even if we do that. Now, 2 days ago, Facebook announced they have games in Messenger now. That market's gone as well. Oh my God, people can't do another clone of Tetris. This is scary. Users try out a lot of apps, but decide which ones they want to stop using within the first 3 to 7 days. So this is your grace period. You have to be very good, very fast. And other than that, people like me, I don't like it anymore. It's too annoying now. The average app mostly loses its entire user base within a few months. People are going away again and not use you anymore. They don't become advocates for you. They don't tell to other people, oh, you should play this, you should have that. That's gone as well. Of the 1.5 million apps, above our 1.5 million apps in the Google Play Store, only a few thousand sustain meaningful traffic. A few thousand. 1.5 million is crap that's just there in your way when they try to find your application. And there's SEO people, there's like optimizers for your app that are really good in listing their app above yours. This is the average retention curve for Android apps, so not using it any longer. Users spend 80% of their time using just 5 apps, and that's what we know: Facebook, Google Maps, maybe some dating things if you're single or desperate, and some other objectivity things as well. And you have scams, spam, and senseless cruft. This was a great article, and these slides are online, so all the links are available, so you didn't have to write along. Good, you didn't. This was great, where somebody went to the App Store, the iOS store, and was looking for Office, for Excel. And there is Office Excel, I think. Well, we do it on the web, it makes more sense. But anyways, the first thing you find is a bundle for MS Office, which is a 30 megabyte download, which is Excel templates. So you cannot use that without Excel, but it's the only thing you find when you type in Excel. So it makes no sense to download that thing, those 30 meg, and pay the $15 for it. But it looks like Excel, so people download it all the time. If you look for browsers inside the iOS store, you don't find Firefox, you don't find Chrome, you don't find Brave. You find some bullshit browser from 2014 and hasn't been upgraded, and it's probably malware. And talking of malware, As soon as you lock something in and you promise people a way out, they will use it. That's why people use the third-party stores of Android apps, especially in countries where the American apps are not available. So people go on the web like, oh, there's another Android store, cool, I download stuff from there. There's a malware right now going around called Hooligan, and these are the apps that actually have it installed inside it. And that one includes is a Trojan that goes on your Android device, steals all your logins on all the Google services, and sends them back to the bot network itself. So over 1 million accounts have been compromised with that over the last 2 days, because people did not want to get locked in. They didn't want to get told by Google, this is not available in your country. They wanted to have the thing that they saw in the ad on television. So how can we fix this? I want happy users and ethical, good publishers who get paid. I'm a publisher, I want to get paid. That's fine. That's totally okay to ask for money. It's not fine to put ads all over your thing and trackers all over your thing and sell your customers to your customers. That's not what you're here for. You're here to sell your content. Now, the native app install friction blocks 74% of your potential customers before they ever see your app. What does that mean? Of 1,000 users interested in your app, if you find 1,000 users and you're lucky, 800 of them visit the App Store. They click that button, okay, let's go to the App Store. 640 of them find the app because there's no link directly to the App Store in most cases. 640 of them find it. 512 then are not frustrated enough to actually start clicking install. Then they get asked for permissions, because every app asks you for permissions. Hey, I'm a puzzle game, I probably want to get all your contacts, your firstborn, a pint of blood, and where you live, and all your information all the time, right? Because that sells to other people. So, okay, 410 users. Then they download and wait 328 users, because sometimes if it's like 15 meg and I'm on a slow connection I'm not going to download that, I don't care any longer. 328 users. And then start using it, 262 users. And that gets funnier when most of the apps then like log into our system as soon as you start using them. You're like, well, that's another half gone. So that friction, what I said, where apps is the biggest step back in software distribution, makes us lose all these users. So we have to fix that. That's the thing that needs to be done. The other thing is that because of that friction, our upgrades are not fun as well. Every time I go back to my wireless, it says like 47 apps want to upgrade. I haven't used them in years. I don't even know what they are. Why do they need upgrades? If they haven't been loved, why do they want to be fed? You know, I don't know them any longer. They're like, most apps are like super annoying Tamagotchi. Like, please feed me, please. You know, all the notifications, like there's some new feature in the app that you've never used. What? Why? I don't care. You can get 1,000 more coins in the game that you're shit at. Like, great. Like, I was desperate. I was frustrated the first time I played it. So apps are a flash in the pan. Okay. So what do we do? Back to the web? We see the web's broken right now, and I think yes, we go back to the web, but with a twist. Because technology on the web has not stepped back. I worked on Firefox OS. I worked on other systems. I worked on Windows machinery right now. We have great stuff. We have great browsers. We have evergreen browsers on almost every platform. We weren't ready to go out. The problem was the first time we tried to battle the native apps with web technology, we weren't ready to go out on the web completely. We weren't ready to just make a website into an application. Instead, we made an application that was like a native application using web standards. That's where things like Cordova came in and these kind of things, and PhoneGap. So we created websites that kind of worked well on mobile, but we packaged them up and submitted them to the marketplaces, because the marketplace where people were expecting apps to go. In a one-on-one comparison, they were rubbish. They were not as good, and that's partly because iOS and other players didn't allow HTML to do the performance that a normal app would do. They didn't give us access to the camera. They didn't give us access to the accelerometer. They didn't allow us to play a loopless sound. And for a game that has a background sound, nobody's going to play that. So it was a real issue there. And that's because they weren't web products. They were native apps built in web technologies. So we tried to beat them on their own game, and we lost, which is an outcome that's normal. Nowadays, mobile web browsing overtakes desktop browsing for the first time. People use the browser all the time on their phone. They don't use, they use apps less, but they actually surf more. I think when you click on Twitter and you click on a link there and it opens a browser inside Twitter, which is friggin' annoying, instead of going to the browser and putting it into my history, people do that much more. And we're looking much better. All these APIs that at the beginning weren't available to HTML5 are now available on these evergreen new browsers that we can use. So this is a side-by-side comparison of what PhoneGap allowed us to do, and we don't need to do it anymore because now it's in browsers, because the browser makers learned from these systems. So let's tackle the mobile form factor. What do you need to do to make a mobile experience really, really nice? Small initial payload. Make that thing as small as possible. The first load has to be instant, has to be really good, and give people what they came for. Don't give them a loading message or something, or please log in later or download my shit. Give them what they came for and then start loading the rest. Form factor supporting content. Don't give people War and Peace on a website that they have to scroll and they can't zoom into. Give them content that makes sense. Big buttons for fat fingers. Really good idea, rather than like drop-down menus that you cannot use. Form factor supporting interfaces. As I said, buttons are a really, really good thing. Allow people to make mistakes in your interfaces. Offline flaky connection support. The thing has to work offline. That's why people love native apps. Every time I did HTML5 apps that worked offline, people didn't trust them. They were just like, that's a URL, I have to be online. I cannot, well, turn your machine off and try it. But no, I don't trust it. It's HTML5. It cannot be offline. Taking advantage of the power of the end user device. If there's a camera in there, allow that as an input device. If there's local storage they can store things into it. There's nothing better than allowing people to not to download something because it's already on their phone. And avoid interaction latency. Like a 300 milliseconds delay on a click on desktop, on a mobile, oh my god, the world is ending, my phone is dead, I have to go to the shop and buy a new one. Every time there's a delay in your interaction, people hate you a little bit more. So the best way to bend the retention curve in native apps as well is to target the first few days of usage, in particular the first visit. These are the successful factors of the apps that are still succeeding in the native market. The ones that gave you the first best impression and the better impression the few days after that. That you kept using it and it got happier and happier and better. And this is what progressive web apps are. They're not a unicorn, but I like that icon. So progressive web apps are a new idea. It's not a new idea. We have a set of technologies that we now call progressive web apps to make applications on the web that are just a link. And you go to that link, and when you look at it for the first time, you installed the application. I'm going to go into that in detail. Now, the first way to do this is the app manifest. The app manifest is just a JSON block that describes the document is an application to browsers that support it, and to search engines that can index it that way and know it's an app and not just a website. It defines the look and feel. You can go full screen. You define the colors of the Android bar and stuff, and the screen orientation if it's sideways or upwards. And you have access to platform-specific functionality. So if you say it's an app, the browser on the operating system says like, okay, you now got the right to do more. You can access a native date controller. You can access the camera. You can do the things that a website, because of the broken security model of normal websites, is not possible for them. And it's a standardized version of older similar approaches. We had like the Firefox OS manifest, we had the Microsoft manifest, we had all kind of stuff out there. This is what it looks like. It's just a JSON blob with the right names and the right things in there. There's validators for it. There is generators for it. One great is manifestation. You just give it a URL and it actually creates the manifest for you by scraping what's on that website. So it fills in the title for you, and it fills in the orientation and the colors for you, and it finds out the language of the application. So it's a pretty simple way to start with it and then edit the rest by hand. And the next thing that gives us the possibility now to break the idea of native apps is the service worker. The service worker is a web worker. So in essence, it's a service that runs in the background, and it allows you to do all HTTP caching and all HTTP traffic that a browser normally does. So instead of just giving you an offline functionality we had with things like web cache, app cache, we now can intercept HTTP requests and say like, hey, this is already on the device, so you don't need to load that from the internet anymore. So instead of relying on the browser to cache things for you, we name caches. We put the things in there. We know what's in the cache. We can delete it. We can update it. We can intercept any network connectivity in the background. So it intercepts fetch events just for loading stuff and responds with cache if you define the cache, or puts it in the cache when you do it the first time. It intercepts push events, so you can do notifications and you can also wake up applications in the background or get new information and put it in the cache, so next time the person opens that, the new information is there. And it intercepts sync and periodic events, so you can sync your data in the background without the user having to have the browser open. So what you really have here is a website that works offline and does all the network trafficking that you want that normal application to do without the people needing to press the reload button all the time. It works offline, it works with push notifications, and that is the big new pop-up thing. Everybody wants push notifications because that's how you get people back into your applications. Please think of the UI of push notifications. Don't say, people, something new happened in my app. Nobody needs that. Say like, you've got 12 new emails, do you want to reply? And reply in the push notification itself. People don't even need to open the app anymore. Make a notification worthwhile, otherwise you're just shouting and you make new pop-up windows. And background syncing is the very important thing, that the thing stays up to date all the time without users having to go through the reinstall and uninstall and log in again and ask for permissions again, because the permissions model is also asynchronous in this case. So you can ask for more and less permissions depending on what your application uses after using the first time. That was always the problem with native apps. They asked for every permission because they might have to use it in the future. And I don't want to grant every permission. A progressive web app is HTTPS. That is one thing that needs to be done. You cannot run it over HTTP because HTTP has to die. HTTPS, HTTP2 is the interesting thing that we should be doing, and it's our users should get their traffic encrypted. They have to have a valid manifest with all required properties, which is in essence just the base URL that needs to be offline available. They must have a service worker. The start URL defined the manifest must always load, including in an offline state. That's what service worker is for. The first time you go to that website, put that in the cache and make sure it's there. And it must supply an own navigation independent of the browser UI, because nobody wants to go backwards and forwards in the browser, and you probably want to show your app full screen. And it's responsive to different sizes and form factors, but any website nowadays should be. There's lots of great resources. There's service workers to explain the service worker directly and all the caching mechanisms and caching recipes that you have. There's a Udacity course by the Google guys. If you want to learn that from Udacity, it's a free course to build offline applications. There's events about progressive web apps. I spoke at one of them as well, and the whole videos are online on YouTube, and you can download YouTube if you know how to write a script. And there is a progressive web apps checklist that Google just released a few days ago, where it shows you the things that to make sure what do you need to make sure that it is a progressive app in the view of Google. Some other people have different ideas, but there's good functionality and ideas there. The first success stories. Alibaba is the global leader in B2B trade. They upgraded to a PWA from their website, 76% more web conversions, 30% more monthly active users on Android, 14% on iOS. 4 times higher interaction rate from app to home screen. This is the successes that they had just by building a service worker around the thing. Housing.com is a real estate platform in India. 38% more conversions, 40% lower bounce rate, 10% longer average session, 30% faster page load. And this is great because this is India, where connectivity is horrid. So for them, that means they have a business now that they didn't have before. What about support? This is all new cool functionality, of course. So what about browsers that should have been retired years ago, and what can we do about that? Well, I keep talking about progressive enhancement. Progressive enhancement means you do something better for the better environments. An escalator is a great example for progressive enhancement. What is an escalator that breaks down? It's a set of stairs. You can still go to the other floor. You don't have to call somebody. It's okay. It's just less convenient. And the same way, your application should give the basic functionality to everybody and use the new cool things when and if they're supported. Much like jumping into a river is much cleverer if you try first if it's not iced over or there's piranhas in it or something. To use these if statements, they're there for a reason. And using this, we can support the past, like the horrible Android browsers, the He Who Should Not Be Named, and Netscape. You know, these things are there, and there is functionality that you can even do that make them an offline functionality, but I don't know if it's worthwhile. We can also support the current edge cases, like the Silk browser of Amazon, Puffin, UC browser, or Opera Mini, because we build something smaller and better for them as well. We rethink our obese web. And after some checking, all the current browsers and what they support is also there. So there's coexisting between different browsers. They're all lovely people. Don't be a fanboy of one browser. We all work together on standards. And I worked on 3 browsers, so I know. It's just annoying how much time we spend on harping on about, like, you should use this browser. It's the same as like saying to a blind person, you should be seeing my website. They cannot change that. They cannot do that. Every time you get very excited about how you set up your browser, go on holiday and go to a hotel and try to use a computer there. That's not fun, but this is the web. We cannot control it. So let's talk about iOS. iOS does not support officially Service Worker. There's interest in the mailing list of WebKit, which is cool, and there's lovely people in there. I know a lot of people in Apple. They're not allowed to speak publicly about this. This is sad, but I guess they get other perks for that. iOS has 45% of the US smartphone market, and iOS users spend $1.08 per user per app, per user, versus 43 cents on Android. So iOS users are richer and spend more money. That's why everything gets released on iOS first. And I can validate that because I work with the Metropolitan Police in England, and they told me stealing an iPhone is so much better than stealing an Android because reselling an iPhone is much easier. So that's the proof that I heard. I don't know. But people really think buying an iPhone gets them into a different social level. They actually become cooler and they're now part of the in crowd rather than some Android that catches fire or something. It's kind of like, it's a weird thing, but the affluent people use iOS. On the other hand, 86% of the global market share is Android, because in many countries an iPhone is either not affordable or not available. But Android devices are available because they were based on an open source operating system, and a lot more providers built Android phones. So if you do the math there and you just do that properly, then you realize those 43 on double the amount of money, double people worldwide, you get the same money from Android than from iOS. You just reach more people, and you have to make your content more available rather than like building something that people in the Silicon Valley need. Apple has a few things when it started, like 2007 when they did the whole thing. There's Apple mobile web app capable content equal yes, because that's much easier than a manifest file. That's what you put up there, and then it realizes it's an HTML5 application, and iOS still supports this. There is a Cordova plugin Service Worker. That is a Cordova plugin that makes the Service Worker available for iOS as well. What about desktop and other form factors? Let's go back from mobile, because a lot of people like me who have been around the web for a long time and talked about it for a long time are very angry that all the talk is about mobile and Android, because people use desktops. Old people like me use laptops. You know that they're still around there. My colleague Jacob Rossi, 2 months ago, I think, yeah, 2 months ago, wrote The Progress of Web Apps, where he explains what HTML5 applications do in Windows, which I didn't know because I'm mostly a Mac user. Now I have a Surface Book as well. And it says like the existing PWA implementations still leave web apps as second-class native apps in many ways. We want to fix that. Because on a desktop, the PWA didn't do much. It was very much on an Android device with Chromium as the browser. So in the Edge plans, what we have in our plans right now for the new browser, by the way, if you ever wonder about the logo, why it looks like the old one, we didn't want to confuse people. It's very simple that way. But I was really confused because this to me looks like a shower head going into a sink. So you will never be able to see that logo again without thinking that as well. On Edge, a service worker and PWAs, what we want to do is like that they run as a Windows service. That way you get full access to the Windows functionality, like the date picker and all the rich Cortana integration, even voice recognition, these kind of things in your applications. You can wake up the browser even when the browser is closed. That's what something, the PWA on Android has to have the browser running the whole time, but it runs all the time anyway, so it's really not that much of an issue. And it may spawn multiple service worker at once for performance. We're still debating this, but on Android it's a one service worker per domain rather than like multiple ones if you want to do some image manipulation or something like that in a service worker that needs a lot of juice from the main processor. On Windows itself, we want Bing to crawl websites. That Bing does that, yes. If you don't know what Bing is, you can Google for it, it's a search engine. And sites with a manifest file go into the Windows Store. So the applications that people install on their desktop can be your website. So that will be just a full application for Windows. These web apps are real applications, so they run on desktop, Windows Phone, Xbox, HoloLens, and Surface Hub. All of these will be supported and are supported right now for HTML5 applications. With Service Worker, it will be just they're much better because they work offline as well. The Google Webmaster Central blog the other day wrote a blog post called Building Indexable Progressive Web Apps, and that's very, very important because the Chrome team does amazing stuff and people love them to bits, I love them to bits, but the normal end user is much more interested what Google does. Like, what does it do for me being indexed in Google? How do I win over the other website that sells flowers or something? And they explained now that they're in Google also will support PWAs and list them higher as other websites, and that's a really, really good step there. So, any web product can become a progressive web app, not all have to be. You don't need to worry about it if your website is just like, I don't care. Fine, you don't have to be. It's not that your website will break, they will still work. That's what the web is for. You reap the rewards of simple maintenance and upgrade paths in the form factor mobile users expect. You make your thing available properly on mobile devices if you think about these best practices of PWAs. Apps can hibernate and wake up on demand. No need to have the browser open. You don't need to go back to your bookmarks. It's just another app. The great thing here and the progressive web apps is that they bring back the power of the link. The link is the distribution model. It's not a marketplace that I have to sign into, give my credit card, pint of blood, and my first one. I can just go in there, click on the link, and by the time I consumed the app the first time, it already is installed. There's none of that friction of installing the application. You don't need to play by the rules of a closed marketplace, and you can send people a link and by the time they looked at it, the app is ready to use. It's real try before you buy. If you don't want it, delete it, done. This thing is not even installed as an icon. The Chrome model is like the first time you go to a PWA, it installs itself. The second time it asks you, hey, you're using that more, do you want to have an icon on your home screen? And the third time it says, like, by the way, I'm also available offline. So the functionality comes with repeat use or upfront if you want to tell people about it immediately. In-app purchases, as we said, is where the money is at, and you can do that in your own app without splitting costs with Apple or Google. Don't know what Google is saying about this right now, but actually this is what PWAs allow you to do. And for all intents and purposes, PWAs are a great opportunity to slim down the web. That terrible web that I showed you before has to die. The web is for everybody. The web was made for being independent of location, technology, and ability. This is what made the web big and what it still is. So find a good middle ground to control and user convenience. We cannot control the user on the web, and we're losing people when we try to control them with native applications. So without reinventing the great distribution model of the web, we can have the functionality of native apps without losing people in that 74%. And that's all I had, so thanks very much.
Hello? It works. Yeah, we have a few questions, and I think the most important one is which VPN you are using.
I'm not VPN. It's a Swedish one, and it allows me all kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not doing anything illegal with it. I just don't want government to spy on me. That's my right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely. I guess most people do the same here, I hope. Okay, next question is, how long do you think it will take until mobile devices hardware will match the requirements so we can abandon the native apps completely?
The native apps completely,
or at least to some extent?
it depends on the functionality. The big thing on iOS is that iOS always comes up with a new functionality of a phone and don't tell anybody about it. I guess that's made them the most successful company in that place. So saying something like, oh, force touch, for example, we cannot predict this in web standards, so we cannot have it at the same time. Question is if users really want to have that. And I think the iOS is the only issue. Google and Android have understood that the web is very, very powerful. And I don't think we have these issues any longer there where native apps have much more functionality than the other apps have. Also, a lot of them have been gimmicks. Like, if you think about what people expect from an app, do your user research and what they really want. Most of the time, they don't want dancing polar bears in the background. They just want the thing to work offline. And that's what we have already. There's a great talk by Alex Russell at the Polymer Summit where he talked about performance of mobile devices, and that's a very, very important talk to listen to, because it doesn't matter how many processors and how many video chips we can put in the mobile phone, you only have 50 milliseconds to get the full functionality before it gets slower, because there's no heat sinks on our phones. The heat of the mobile phone slows it down no matter how many chips we got in there. So either we're going to have mobile phones with heat sinks, which are going to be awful to hold, or we have that problem of performance on mobile devices always, but that's a form factor issue that cannot change. So make sure that your stuff works as fast as possible, no matter how cool your phone is.
Okay. Next question is, are there any known malware or abused bot networks with progressive apps?
No.
Not yet, I guess.
Not yet. I mean, there will be people who find evil things in everything, but the good thing is it's much harder to hide things in public than to hide them in a marketplace. So I mean, native apps are black magic. A website that I visited and then out of a sudden I see random stuff, I know where it came from. So that's the thing. Like there's no security in obscurity. So the web can always be fixed faster than any native environment because it's on demand. That's the really cool thing about that. There are security issues. App Cache, the predecessor of Service Worker, had a lot of security issues, but that's partly also because it didn't expect you to use HTTPS, so it didn't need an encrypted, safe environment. So if you build PWAs on your local machine, localhost is always whitelisted, so you don't need to test it over HTTPS. You can do that in your browser itself.
Okay. Yeah, I'm running out of questions in Slido. Yeah, that's one question there.
Yep. How did we make the Edge working faster than Chrome? Well, for one thing, it was built for Windows, so it was built for the operating system itself. It's a completely new browser. It was built from ground up, and Chrome it was like, was it 6, 7 years old? And the longer software gets, the more slow it will get as well. I mean, it's a big race where always one is faster another month than the other one. But it's great because that way all browsers get better. But we had a good opportunity to start from scratch with other browsers didn't have. What was really frustrating about building Edge was that we put Edge on the web and said like, hey, here's an ES6 compatible browser with HTML5 support. This is what the web is, right? And then everybody wrote things for old iOS and old Safari and Chrome only. So we had to put a lot of bugs of other browsers into Edge as well, just to make the web not break. So that was really frustrating to me. Of course, I mean, that's a very personal view. I'm always fascinated when people are like, oh, how is Edge so much faster? And I'm like, well, it's only available on Windows as well. I expect it to be faster. And this is what we're doing right now. And Chrome is available everywhere. So I'm not saying that we're better than them. I just use whatever you want. That's what my choice is. I still use Firefox in my main browser, so that's weird anyways. Myri.
The question for you as a publisher, how would you prepare to get paid for the content?
Cash right now. The question was about publisher, how do I expect to get paid with the model being broken right now?
Without selling out your users and without displaying ads and other nasty stuff.
Yes. If I had the answer of that, I wouldn't be standing here. I would probably be at TechCrunch and make money just by saying hi. So the question was, what's the revenue model of the web if it's not showing ads and selling the data of your users? That one is broken right now because ad blockers are actually a thing. And the more aggressive we have this race going on, I think we need something like Flatter was a great idea, where I can say I've got $50 a month that I put in a wallet, and whenever I find something cool on the web, in the browser, I say like, hey, I give this $1. You know, to have something inside the browsers themselves or in the operating systems themselves that allows you to give micropayments to publishers while you're consuming it would be a great way of doing it. The only problem that Flatter had is that it was invented by the founder of the Pirate Bay, so people didn't trust it too much. But there are several other players that want to do that in the future. I think direct payment, rather than like realizing that everything is free, is the future of this one. And I'm happy to pay a subscription to an online magazine if it doesn't give me all this crap. If I just get the main article, happy. I mean, I do that with paper newspapers as well. So there's an old model we could go back to. But yeah, that's beyond the scope of here. I find the answer soon and I'll be a millionaire and then I come back and you can give me money.
Yeah, what is your take on Google AI?
Google AMP. AMP is a very interesting concept, and the people doing it are good friends of mine. And what is scary about it is like it's an open source project. It's an open source project to give you an alternative view of HTML that is very much optimized for mobile. What AMP is, it takes the best practices how we should have written HTML for mobiles and enforces them on publishers. So it's much like RSS RSS2 was a different way of displaying your blog. People just read the post somewhere else in a feed reader or something like that. And AMP is the same thing for mobile and listed by Google in search results. And that gives it a bit of a spin that people don't like it because they're like, oh, Google is in control again. It's an open source project. They actually want more people to be part of this. And it's an open standard that they proposed as well. So I would love to see more of it. The danger that I see in something like AMP is that people publish on AMP first and still don't fix their slow website. So they just see there's another way to publish the content, but only to Google users, and this is not what AMP is supposed to be. I did a long interview with Paul Backhaus from Google that I'm going to publish soon on the Decoded Blog Chats website, because I do a podcasty thing where I interview people in 10-15 minutes. His was half an hour because I was young and foolish. And that's going to be coming out soon where he has a lot of these answers. It's a great opportunity and it's much better than like the closed systems that we had like with instant articles in Facebook or whatever Apple that they shut down 2 months later. It's an open source project. It's a great idea. And if anything, AMP teaches you a good best practice of what you should be doing in HTML anyways. But yeah, there's a lot of confusion that it's yet another offer. It's really not. It's just a way of thinking about it.
Okay, I think we have time for one last question. Or no questions?
If I confused them enough. All right, let's go to the interesting talk. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.